Hello and shalom, Messiah, Texas people. It's Friday, which means it's time for another 5-Minute Friday. This week's psalm is Psalm chapter 44. So let's get into this. Psalm 44 opens up with these words: "To the choir master, a maskil of the sons of Korah." So we actually don't really need to go any farther than this introduction before we get to the point where we can start asking questions like, what's a maskil? And the sons of Korah? Wait, like the Korah who got swallowed up by the ground? That Korah? So let's start with the first question. What is a maskil? Well, there are a total of 13 psalms that open up with this word maskil. It means essentially a song of contemplation or a poem that inspires deep, thought-provoking type of content. Now, in our modern vernacular, we would say these lyrics hit hard. So when we see this word maskil in the introduction to the psalm, we should take note of it. We should recognize that this psalm is about to provoke us to consider some deep thoughts and concepts. Additionally, 4 of the 13 psalms that contain this word maskil are also associated with the other phrase that gives us pause for wonderment. Livnei Korach, the sons of Korach. Wait a minute. I thought Korach's entire family was swallowed up in the rebellion that took place back in the Exodus. Well, let's talk about what happened there. The infamous story about Korach's rebellion comes to us from Numbers chapter 16. Number 16 tells us there about Korach, who was the son of Yitzhar, who was the son of Kohat, who was the son of Levi. So not only was this guy a great-grandson of Levi and a great-great-grandson of Yaakov himself, but he was also a first cousin to Moshe and Aharon. In this passage, we learn about how Korach and a few of his friends, men who were important within the tribes of Israel, they approach Moshe and Aharon and challenge their leadership. These men are essentially attempting to coordinate a coup in order to take over leadership in Israel. And the end result is of their challenge. It culminates in verses 24 through 33, which describes the ground splitting open underneath these men and their households being swallowed up completely. It says in verse 32, all the people who belonged to Korach and all their goods went down into the ground. From that, we would assume that Korach's lineage would have been cut off. I mean, after all, verse 27 described the entire families of Datan and Aviram, the 2 of the men who joined with Korach in this rebellion, standing at the door of their tents together with their wives, their sons, and their little ones. So naturally, we would assume that Korach's entire family was swallowed up by the earth and his line was cut off too, right? Not so fast. You see, 10 chapters later, in Numbers 26, we actually see this description in verses 9 through 11. The sons of Eliav, Nemuel, Datan, and Aviram. These are the Datan and Aviram chosen from the congregation who contended against Moshe and Aharon in the company of Korach when they contended against Adonai, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up together with Korach. When that company died, when the fire devoured 250 men, and they became a warning. But the sons of Korach did not die. So we see from this passage that something momentous happened, although it often escapes our notice. Something prompted the sons of Korach to distance themselves from the rebellion that their father had instigated. What was it that prompted them? Perhaps we'll never know. Regardless, their legacy of faithfulness continued through the generations, as can be seen by the fact that these sons of Korach are credited with authoring, or at least being heavily involved with, writing 11 of the Psalms, 4 of those Psalms being referred to as a maskil, or a deep, thought-provoking psalm like this one, Psalm chapter 44. In fact, one of the most well-known phrases from the Psalms is attributed to these sons of Korach. It comes from Psalm 84. Psalm 84 verse 10 says this: "For a day in your courts is better than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my Elohim than dwell in tents of wickedness." Now, this phrase is incredibly fitting for numerous reasons, but perhaps the most impactful are these 2 thoughts. First, they mention the tents of wickedness. Could this be a reference to their predecessor Korach, after whom they're named? Could they be making a statement about walking in humility? You know, the example that Moshe set when he fell on his face before Adonai in Numbers chapter 16, versus the haughtiness of their ancestor, the one whose pride sent him and his tents down to the grave. Secondly, and perhaps even more significantly, is the mention about the position of being a doorkeeper. Why is this significant? Because if we follow the breadcrumbs Scripture provides, it's going to lead us to a passage in 1 Chronicles chapter 9, verse 19, which says this: Shallum, the son of Kor, the son of Eviasaph, the son of Korach, and his kinsmen of his father's house, the Korachites, were in charge of the work of the service, keepers of the thresholds of the tent, as their fathers had been in charge of the camp of Adonai, keepers of the entrance. The mention of being a doorkeeper in Psalm chapter 84 is not just a random thought. It's literally what the sons of Korach did. They were the literal doorkeepers of the tabernacle and later the temple. Who better to speak to the privilege it was to serve as a doorkeeper than it was to dwell anywhere else? So this is the context of Psalm chapter 44, which is a cry for rescue. It's a plea for deliverance. Psalm 44 is a petition for help. How fitting that the sons of one of the most notorious figures in all of the Bible wrote a maskil, a deeply moving psalm about deliverance. So I would encourage you right now to read carefully through Psalm chapter 44 and do it with an open heart. Keep in mind as you read it the significance of its authors and their heartfelt plea for deliverance. Recall their stand for righteousness despite the obvious pain, humiliation, and outrage it must have inflicted upon them. Be aware of their heart position of humility and their actual physical position of being humble servants for the King of Glory. And remember, above all, this lesson: no matter where you come from, no matter what your past holds, no matter what occurred in your family or in your life, the King desires for you to be within his house. If the sons of Korach teach us anything else, it's the principle that we're never too far gone that he can't reach us. No matter what you've experienced in life, no matter how bad the hand that you have been dealt looks, he is more than capable of restoring you and bringing you into his presence. And to be able to be in his presence, even for one day, is preferable to thousands elsewhere. So as you read through this psalm, keep all those things in mind. Thanks for joining us for our look at Psalm chapter 44. Shalom.